Hello. Nate here on the Live Sound 101 YouTube channel, bringing you the volunteer tech vlog in a Let's Drive format. So we're going to go for a little ride here, but before we hit the gas and get on the road, I wanted to mention let's see, what did I want to mention? Oh, I want to set up the video. We're talking compression, so it needs to be talked about a lot. Compression, because it's one of those things where somebody who's a novice just gets into live sound. They kind of figure out, if you push the fader up, things get louder. If you turn this volume to the right, things get louder. If you change the EQ, you can boost the highs by twisting this knob. You can cut the lows by twisting this knob. You can change the frequency that the knob is adjusting by changing this control. So it's kind of like, you know, you can kind of figure out a lot of this stuff. And it's pretty, you can hear what's happening, but then when you get into compression, it's kind of like, whoa, what is this magical voodoo? What is this dark magic? I've never seen anything like this before. What am I actually doing? So when we talked about EQ, we're talking about frequency specific amplification or attenuation. So EQ is boosting a certain frequency range or a certain frequency notch. So a range would be like a shelf. You're boosting a whole, bunch of frequencies in like a nice little round bubble. Or you can like change the Q of a frequency and go whoop and make it like, a really steep peak. So EQ is frequency, it's essentially frequency sensitive amplification. You're amplifying a certain frequency, or you're attenuating, you're cutting a certain frequency. That's my, in the absence of a whiteboard, that's me trying to draw a little EQ notch. But when we get to compression, well, what the heck is going on with compression? We got knee, we got ratio, we got threshold, we got makeup gain, we got all these, like, what the heck? If you're new, and these videos are really geared towards new folks that are learning about live sound and audio, and I'm trying to present this information as clearly as possible. I just got an awesome comment from somebody actually last night, which really fires me up and it makes me want to do more of this stuff. But they said, I have been an audio student in college, or I am an audio student in college, and I learned more from your Introduction to Live Sound 101 Part 1 video than from like any of my professors. Something like that. I was like, wow. So yeah, I'm trying to put this information out there, but also trying to communicate it in a very candid way, like where you're just coming along for a ride in the car. I'm trying to explain it in a way that would make sense to somebody new. So that was an awesome comment. So I actually forget who left that one, but you know who you are. Thank you very much. So let's talk about compression and let's drive. Oh boy, so compression. When we talk about compression, we're talking about dynamics. Yeah, I'll give a little precursor to dynamics. So there's basically 5 characteristics of sound. You've got your frequency, you've got your amplitude, you've got your timbre, you've got the space that the sound is in. Really hard to do that last one. And then you've got time. So these 5 different factors are all having to do with sound and how we perceive sound. Actually, there might be a 6th one in there. That might have more to do with psychoacoustics, though. Anyway, I digress. So when we talk about dynamics, that's often related to amplitude and how loud something is. We talk about dynamics in music, or if you have any experience in concert band, the dynamics are the little notes that are, kind of notes. I said notes, not the notes. When you're reading sheet music, there's the notes, but above the notes, there's little, I don't even know what they're called. There's little descriptors. They're dynamic notes, essentially, and dynamic indicators, if you will, that say like piano, mezzo forte, mezzo piano, or whatever. And oh, this guy's letting me go. Thank you. There's an oil truck just kind of parked in the middle of the road. Everybody's losing their mind. Anyway, So in concert band, if you ever played saxophone or flute or clarinet or trumpet or any of those like typical concert band instruments, you've got your notes, your quarter notes, your half notes. You've got your time signature, and you're reading your music. But in addition to reading the music and doing the sight reading thing, you've also got those dynamic descriptors at the top. That's a piano, mezzo forte, fortissimo, all that. Oh geez, what is it? Italian verbiage to describe how loud you should be. And then you might see something like a crescendo or a decrescendo to get. A crescendo would be a gradual build to much louder, or a decrescendo would be gradual, almost like a fade in or a fade out, if you will, but you're doing it live, real time on your instrument. So you've got this concept in music of dynamics, right? Which is related to amplitude, it's related to volume. So compression comes along, and what you do, so if you hook up your signal into a compressor, the compressor is not affecting EQ. Well, it can affect EQ, but it's not affecting, reverb or it's not putting any type of this like, crazy, I shouldn't say crazy. It's not putting any of those like effects that we normally think of as like effects. You might have like a reverb or an echo or something like that. It's a signal processor, but it's processing the dynamics. It's changing the dynamics of an audio signal, right? So you could get a really, really all over the place signal, right? Where it's really loud for a certain portion, then it gets really quiet, and then it gets loud and quiet. And actually, in concert band and symphony orchestras, dynamics are actually a good thing. That's what actually gives life to music. And it's important to know that dynamics are crucial to music and actually give it life and give it character and give it meaning and emotion. So dynamics are a good thing, but sometimes you might want to rein in those dynamics and control those dynamics. For example, a lead singer that, maybe is not staying right up on that microphone. Maybe the lead singer tends to drift back and come forward and drift back, or they're not singing at a level that is consistent throughout the entire song. Who knows what the reason could be, but there could be some reason why you might want to apply some compression or you might want to change the dynamics of a lead vocal. And so the compressor can do that. And so what it does is it doesn't simply make things louder or softer. It actually adjusts the dynamic range. So like you've got your sine wave and you've got your peak and your trough. So your high point and your low point. And what the compressor can do is actually can make the louder bits just a little bit quieter and the quieter bits just a little bit louder. So it actually adjusts the dynamic range. It compresses, if you will. It squeezes down the signal. And once it squeezes down the signal, your quieter parts are a little bit louder, your softer parts are a little bit your louder parts are a little bit softer. And so that allows you to use makeup gain to turn the whole overall signal up, if that's what you needed to do. It would also allow you to turn the whole overall signal down in some cases, and that might be just what you need. So you still need to use your ears as the number one judge of what to do and what's going on. You can read about what ratio you want to use for certain instruments, or what settings you want to use to do certain things, and that'll give you a ballpark, if it's good information. But you always want to use your ears. How does it sound at the end of the day? So that's kind of like the quick and dirty crash course to compression, basically what's going on. And this is really something that difficult to talk about in the car while I'm driving, because it is very technical, and it lends itself to visual aids, which you are not getting But if you can imagine a sine wave, a perfect sine wave of like, 1,000 hertz tone, and you can imagine kind of squeezing the top down a little bit and then pushing the bottom up a little bit and actually affecting the dynamic range, the difference between the lowest, weakest point and the highest peak. That's what a compressor can do. And the ratio is the amount of compression that's being applied. So you could have like a 1-to-1 ratio, which 1-to-1 wouldn't actually be doing anything. You'd have a 1-to-2 ratio, 1-to-3, 1-to-4 ratio, and that is the amount that the amount you're bringing the sound down by. And that is horrible language to describe that, I'm just realizing. So I need to this is part of the reason I like to do these videos, because I hear myself talk and I'm like, well, that wasn't very descriptive, that really could have been worded better. So I'm trying to find the words here to describe this. Ratio is the intensity of the compression, the amount of compression. I think I already mentioned like the 1-to-2, the 1-to-3, the 1-to-4. So if your waveform is 4 high, whatever that 4 is, because it's all relative, it'll bring it down 1-to-4, right? 1-to-2. So, or you could have like a 1-to-10 ratio, right? And that'd be like the what they call a limiter, right? That's what they that's when it really crushes the signal. So we're talking about the amount that you're squeezing it down. And if you have like a 1-to-10 ratio there, or is it 10-to-1? Now my mind is all backwards. I'm like, am I saying this right? Am I completely off the base here? Because I don't, it's one of those things I don't talk about a whole lot. It's not like compression comes up over the dinner table a whole lot. You know what I mean? At least in my house. Oh boy. But anyway, that's a crash course to compression. Let's see, what else can I say about compression before I go and say something stupid? Yeah, I would say use your ears and just get some signal going through, get behind a compressor and just start messing around. But now you know what to listen for. If you previously didn't really know, now you know you're listening for basically squeeze. You're listening for that sound being kind of crushed and all the life being beaten out of it. And if you had this big sound, you're listening for, it's just getting kind of squashed, and it's going to sound, the timbre, which is one of the characteristics of sound, is going to change. The timbre is what makes a clarinet sound like a clarinet. The timbre, and it's spelled timbre, by the way, Timbre. Looks like timbre. Fancy word it is, but that's what makes my voice sound like my voice compared to my kid's voice or my wife's voice. It's what makes a dog bark sound like a dog bark. It's the character of the sound. You got a reeded instrument, which you all know what a saxophone or clarinet sounds like. You got a woodwind instrument like a flute or I just said reeded instrument. That's technically flute is a woodwind actually. Which most woodwind instruments actually have reeds, but the flute is kind of, I always found that interesting that it wasn't like in the brass family, but it's technically woodwind. Unless I'm completely remembering things wrong. Wow. I am a music major. I was a music major at one point, but yeah, you get your brass instruments where you're doing this whole kind of thing into a mouthpiece, and that's making a certain type of sound. So when we say timbre, that's the character, the quality of the sound, what makes it's almost, I almost think of timbre as kind of like your auditory like thumbprint. You know what I mean? Everybody's got a unique fingerprint. It's kind of like in the audio, in the sonic world, timbre is kind of like that. So compression can actually start changing the way things sound if it's over applied or even subtly applied. It can do that. So just watch out for that. So anyway, those are my thoughts on compression off the top of my head. Should go read up on it a little bit more. But love to know your thoughts on it. How do you use compression? I use it mostly on like bass guitar and a little bit of vocal in a live sound application. Those are kind of like the big places where I tend to use it. It's like the lead vocal and the bass guitar, and just a little bit, not a whole lot, like maybe like a 3-to-1 ratio or a 4-to-1 ratio or something like that, but just a little bit. Then there's also attack and release, which I haven't gotten into because because I'm driving down the road. What do you expect out of me, man? So release is, I guess we should start with attack. Attack is how fast the compressor engages. Release is how fast or how slow the compressor disengages, right? So you've got this squeezing happening, and do you want that squeezing to happen real fast, which affects the envelope of the sound, or you want it to happen real slow? And when the threshold is crossed, that's the trigger at which the compressor engages. And when that threshold gets crossed again on the backside, how fast should it release? And that also changes the timbre of the sound as well. So you really can do a lot with compression. So anyway, that's my little 16-minute spiel on compression. I will continue to think about how I can explain it better, and let me know if that made sense to you. And if I forgot anything, I'm sure I did. I almost forgot attack and release, which are very important. So there's probably a few other knobs that I didn't mention, depending on what kind of compressor you have. I mean, if you're in GarageBand, you just got this big old squeeze button. Like, what the heck is that doing? I don't know. But they made it easy for people. So anyway, I will talk to you in the next video. Thanks for liking and subscribing. I really appreciate it. Really love all the comments. So thank you very much for subscribing and participating in the vlog here. All right, talk to you later.